All right. Welcome to episode 3 of They Got Vision, where we speak to individuals that are bringing change to their communities. In this episode, we're talking to Ahmed Mustafa, who's a 17-year-old who's passionate about Sudanese politics and has written several pieces focusing on Sudanese figures like the former dictator, President Omar Bashir, and recently he wrote about General Abdel Fattah al-Burha. So welcome to the show, Ahmed. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. And you're
It's
in
quite
London, yeah?
cold around here. Yeah, it's getting pretty cold.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I'm loving it.
I can't imagine. So let's get straight to it. What really got you? You're very young. I'm a journalist and writer myself, and I'm 23 years old. So, what got you to write at such a young age about so big topics?
I mean, for me, I feel like generally a lot of people kind of have a person that they see in their family or someone they have someone close to them that they look up to. But for me, I mean, obviously in general in the Sudanese public, politics is quite a regular conversation, right? They always bring up politics, they always speak about things, but I don't really have a politician in my family. I don't really have, someone that I look up to and be like, wow, he's my inspiration. I feel like it was just a me thing, I wanted to express my opinions. I wanted my voice to be heard. And especially after December 2019, obviously with the whole revolution, I
Right.
felt like I could do that. It gave me a push to do that. And yeah, I just enjoy doing it.
Yeah, man. Props to you, man. Definitely, I think. That's what got me interested into writing, where it's like you can use a platform with your own words, and it could really transform an entire audience into thinking of something or into creating a change. And yeah, like you said, December was just only a few years ago. We were really facing a whole revolution, transitional government, and now we're in the scheme of things in Sudan and everything. So, what particularly was it? Just like you wanted to write by any politics, or was it just like let me write about Sudanese politics?
I mean, when it comes to politics in general, I do have a passion, but of course, when it's your blood, when it's Sudan, and I feel like with Sudanese politics, there's a lot of misconceptions, there's a lot of misunderstandings because unfortunately, the media in our country is quite terrible. They don't get the point across. They do have a lot of biases. Um, so I feel like me writing about Sudanese politics made more sense and could help more people than if I write about British politics, for example, or world politics or general politics. So that's what kind of drew me more to Sudanese politics. And there isn't a lot of information about Sudanese politics on the internet. So I really try and kind of gather information from wherever it may be and wherever I can get information from to kind of give it to whoever is reading and just kind of inform them of what's going on.
Right, right,
Sudanese.
right. And I think it's very important that we have us, people with our background, with the Sudanese background, to tell our own stories. Because, like you said, the media gets it wrong. They don't get the right aspect of it, and that leads me to my next question: is like, what challenges have you faced while you're writing about one leader or another leader or covering an issue?
Um, Loads of challenges. I'll start off with obviously finding accurate information because finding information is one thing and finding accurate information that you can actually count on is another thing. And with general politics, obviously, let's say if I'm writing about an American politician or a British politician, information on the internet is sufficient enough for me to use. But when it comes to Sudanese politics, you kind of have to dig deeper and look at different sources, whether it be, asking some relatives that are close with that certain person or understand more in politics um, or anything like that. So it really made me like dig deeper and work twice as hard to find accurate information and kind of summarize it in a form where the reader could really understand it and it will make sense to them.
Right, right. Because I mean, your goal is not just to inform Sudanese individuals, but
Yeah,
outside, Sudanese community, and that's where you got to give
course.
yourself a foundation and like a background of who this person is, what they mean to the Sudanese people, um, and everything like that. I think that's very essential. What is what is something that you like where you realize like, okay, I can like when was the moment in the time where you were like, yeah, I can write about Sudanese politics. I can keep this up. This is something I'm good at.
I mean, for the first time I did it, I kind of just did it. It was during COVID times. I had a lot of time in my hands, and I thought, you know what, this is a passion of mine. I have a lot of time in my hands. Let me not waste this time. Let me try and do something here, because obviously I do have a lot of friends that are not Sudanese, and sometimes we do get into politics. We do talk about politics, and it's quite obvious that they don't know a lot about Sydney's politics, although they do have like a bit of a background. Like they come and talk to me like, yo, what's going on in the news? I saw in the news this and that. But there isn't really any understanding of what's going on. So I thought, you know what, let me just write this article. And then when I first did it, a lot of people, like friends, even friends or not friends, read it, and they came up to me and they're like, man, like I read I read your article, and it's really informative. I like what you're doing, keep it up. And it doesn't have to be, obviously 100 people, but if it's like 2 or 3 people, that's enough to keep me going, motivated, to motivate me to do more.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, we had, like, when I was first starting, I remember like, one of my professors and editors were like, if you could just reach one person, and that's where that's the start, and that's a good goal because we need, I believe, and this is what really got me to wanting to do this podcast with you and having this conversation, is that we need individuals in the community like ourselves, that are covering these stories, that are telling us the news. Because like you're waking up in a world of misinformation and propaganda and all, there's so much to tell. There's so much going on at once, and the news comes in like this, and Sudan's always in the news. It was just in the news a couple of weeks ago. It's gonna be the news in a couple of weeks again, I'm sure. We're always gonna be current, and we need leaders and prominent figures to showcase what's coming next for Sudan. So, with this writing background, journalistic background, where do you see yourself going? Where do you hope yourself to be? What's your goal?
Um, right. So essentially, I use these articles as a form of expressing my opinions and to try and just like educate, the people who don't know, whether Sydney's or non-Sydney's. But um, I've come here to London, studying politics and international relations, and hopefully one day I will go back to Sudan and help it in one form or another in terms of politics and just helping the country in general, because the people are suffering a lot. They do need. I feel like the younger generation isn't represented enough in our country,
Yeah.
especially not on the mainstream, of course, on social media, etc. I mean, they run it, but when it comes to mainstream politics, if we look at our, you know, high-ranked positions in the country, our prime minister is 65 plus years old. Our president is 50 plus years old. Even, the youngest person in the highest position is Mohamed Hamid, who's around 45, I believe. So as you can see, that there isn't really a younger representation in our country, and I find that very unfair. I find that very sad, because we are the ones who started the revolution. So we should have a form of expressing ourselves on the mainstream, having a representative and someone who can represent us. And we do have the people for it. So essentially, my goal is to just, one day, hopefully, inshallah, come back to Sudan and just make it a better place.
Yeah, inshallah. I think, you were you born in Sudan?
No, I wasn't. I was born in London, actually.
Right. So I mean, just like I am, I was born in the US. Um, I feel like it's always these, I'm always talking Sudanese, and the conversation maybe 5 years ago is like, yeah, I want to go back to Sudan, give back to my people. Actually, my friends that just came back from Sudan recently, I was talking to them. I was like, how's Sudan? I haven't been to Sudan for a few years myself, and they're like, oh man, it's over. It's the hope has really declined. And it was crazy because we had the revolution and everything like this, and people were like, all right, Sudan's gonna come back. The young is gonna be the leaders. Where do what is your frustration that someone as the diaspora, living across, miles away, thousands of miles away from Sudan, and seeing these headlines, how do you keep yourself, like motivated and seeing yourself like, yeah, it's as bad as this is, there's still an opportunity.
A younger generation. I think that's a simple answer. I think we've got a very good young generation. We've got a very talented younger generation. We've got a passionate younger generation. We started this revolution, so we can do anything. Yeah, it's just in terms of, it's a matter of situation. How things go with the country. Obviously, things are quite unstable right now. The power are in the wrong hands, in my opinion. But we have a younger generation, and eventually they will take over. Eventually, we will have control, and we will do better for the country because we have the people for it. We have the passion for it. We have, the patriotism for it. So that's my hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the answer. Yeah, the young is always going to bring us. I think the old, like you said, we have the old leaders, old politicians who they're no longer, their best interests are not longer for the generation or the people. It's outside resources. And I wanted to ask you one last question actually, which is, you see yourself as a writer right now, and there's not many of us. There's not a lot of Ahmeds and Mohammeds that are writing politics, unless maybe they're in Al Jazeera. But even that, like, that's very few. How do you ever see yourself telling other people, hey, let's, maybe like people with similar political backgrounds to, enter this type of field, or, do you find people that do you have a hard time finding people in your demographic, doing the same thing, or are you one of the few?
I think I find a very hard time finding people in my same demographic. Yeah, it's quite, there aren't a lot of Ahmeds and Mohammeds, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of political writers, especially when it comes to something specific, when it comes to Sudanese politics, etc. Because obviously there are security problems with them. So some of them, might have family members that tell them, oh, don't post this or don't publish that, including me. So it could be quite difficult for them. They might have their opinions, but they're just buried inside their head and they can't really express them. But I do find quite a hard time, finding people that write about Sudanese politics and, in a way where a non-Sudanese person or an average reader can understand and get a background of, which is why I started this, because I figured there aren't a lot of people who do this. How is our younger generation, Sudanese or not, going to understand politics? Because from the news, it could be quite biased, and we both know this. The news do have their biases. So for an average reader to just get a background of it, like an understanding of what's going on, that's why I started this, because they could read, they could understand. It'd make it easier for them.
Yeah,
just make people more knowledgeable.
Yeah, I mean, you hit there's nothing I could add to that. That's exactly what I've been thinking, saying my entire university life. And, even when I was in high school, I was like, man, I don't see anybody like myself, nobody really out there in the field reporting on things that should be reported. Sudanese people are brilliant, very informed about the world. We're everywhere, our roots are everywhere. But yeah, sometimes we just, we don't find ourselves in the main focus. So what's next for you? Do you have you, I don't want to spoil if you're writing anything right now or anything like that, but are you continuing on this political writing up, what's happening in Sudan and everything like that?
Definitely. And something is coming up soon, but of course, it is on hold right now. due
Right.
to my university, etc. You know, it is getting a bit busy, but I will get to it. I kind of want to broaden my articles to more like wider, maybe continental or global articles. But yeah, a lot is coming. Hopefully, just stay tuned.
Yeah, and we will, you know, and hopefully we could be the platform that features your next work. We really I gotta say, Ahmed, like I really appreciate your work, your writing. You know, you're doing this at such a young age, and man, practice makes perfect. You just get better and better, and it'll come at ease, and you know, school will come at the same time, but you know, you'll be able to like scratch things really quickly as time goes on, and you should be very proud of yourself. You know, that's what I hope, you know, if anything, you know that your work is really good. You're hitting audiences. I've had people like come to me and say like, you know, did you write this? I was like, oh no, it's just somebody a lot younger, somebody across the world is writing this, and you know, definitely I think inspiring our youth here in America, and obviously in London and in Sudan as well, and probably around the world. So, you know, just keep it up, and you know, keep your head up and stay warm in London. I know it gets cold. Um,
That's
so, you know, take care of yourself, but we really appreciate you for being on this platform and showcasing your work in every other way.
the pleasure is all mine. Thank you very much. I will keep posting. I will keep in touch. Hopefully my work does get featured on your platform.
Always.
And yeah, it's been a pleasure.
All right, Ahmed, thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much.